Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, October 7th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda, under agenda item 1.1, Land Acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to the Métis District 1 foothills. Moving on to agenda item 1.2, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared, thank you. Moving on to the acceptance of the agenda, agenda item 2.1 for the regular council meeting for October 7th, 2024. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion to adopt the regular council meeting agenda for October 7th, 2024 as presented? Councillor Saylor makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.1 under adoption of the previous minutes. As part of your council package, we had the regular council meeting minutes from September 16th, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes from September 16th, 2024 as presented? Councillor Pickering makes that one. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Staff Sergeant, if you want to make your way up to the presenter table, please. Coming up under agenda item 4.1, delegation by appointment. We are pleased to have our Staff Sergeant Mike Numan present this afternoon regarding the R.C.M.P. Community Policing Quarter 1 report. Staff Sergeant, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, thank you. Good to see everybody again. It's been a few months. Thank you for the addition of the armless chair, much appreciated. Much easier to get in and out of. Yes, so I apologize, this report is a little bit late. Our first quarter was April, May, and June of this year. It's now already October, but that's just the way we were busy this summer, as were you folks, with a lot of things going on. So we'll get caught up here and get more timely reports in the future here. The package that I had presented to the town was a cover letter. It's a standard cover letter that every community gets, and it kind of just gives some highlights of the summer. We'll go into that. The one thing we did find out is that the G7 summit, which is the top 7 leaders in the world, are coming to Kananaskis this year. So that will be another draw on some resources for sure, to make sure that that's done safely, along with everything else that we're doing with the wildfires, and those seem to crop up every year, more so now than ever. So we're planning for a busy year to come for sure. We can go to the municipal policing report, which you've all read. So I'm not gonna read it line by line. I'll just highlight some of the things that we did in that first quarter within the town of Coaldale. Met with yourselves several times, just discussing our funding and our 10th position, and the strategy, usage, and funding of that. We attended several COP meetings throughout that quarter. They have one a month, and there was some additional training that either myself or the R.C.M.P. liaison, Constable Short, attends, and we continue to see that program get off its feet here, hopefully in the near future. I also met with local fire department chiefs to discuss some concerns they have brought up just on paperwork, billing, and response time. We had a good meeting and came to some resolutions to hopefully improve our service and our communication between the two units. We attended the mock impaired driving scenario at the high school. That was Kate Andrews. There was a bunch of emergency services that took place in that. I think it really is a positive thing, and it demonstrates the dangers to our up and coming drivers and students about impaired driving, both by alcohol and drug. That was a great day as well. I met with CAO Kaylin Hastings. We discussed the new site and the development of the Civic Square and just how we can, protect that site from vandalism, those types of things. And I gave him some ideas, and we referred Carolyn McTighe, who is our SEPTED inspection person, to come and do a bit of an inspection. So hopefully we'll get some ideas there, and if there's any improvements, we can make that place safe and good for all to use. Attended the Seniors Week at the Civic Square. That was a good event as well. We attended the second annual Coaldale Big Truck Petting Zoo. That was a huge success. Never had so many kids in and out of that. The biggest attraction on that day was believe it or not, my enclosed trailer that was empty, but I had the ramp down and the kids would run up and run down. The quads were pretty good too, but anyways, it's just funny what amuses them. That was a really great event. Thanks to Terry for setting that up. I took part with myself and Sergeant Dutch in the 3 separate tabletop exercises hosted by Coaldale Fire Department for the Alberta Summer Games. And I think that was very valuable, not only for that event, but any major event that we may have, or crisis or disaster, and better preparing all the agencies for that. And finally, at the end of June, Sergeant Dutch attended the grad ceremony at the Kate Andrews High School grad, and presented and did a speech there, as we've done in the last couple of years. So that's just some of the things that we have accomplished that quarter. Our community priorities, as I spoke to before, if we go to the next page, Alana, page 4, I believe it is. One more, yeah. Thank you. Our priorities remain the same: traffic, safety, to deal with motor vehicles and roads, police, community relations, and our visibility within the communities, and then our crime prevention and our intelligence-led policing, which really involves working well with all our partner agencies and making sure that we're all working hard to deal with the 10% of people that are causing us the 90% of the problems. So traffic safety, in that quarter, we wrote 59 violation tickets, and this is only our members that are working general duty, not the traffic members. I don't have their stats, and those aren't included. This is just our detachment members. We did 3 joint traffic stops with Alberta sheriffs, and that is something we will continue to do. Our community relations, I think, speak for themselves. So we're pretty present in this community, and I think we'll continue to do that and the best we can, along with going to our calls for service. And our intelligence-led policing, I can say this: the crime prevention is working. We just had our crime prevention unit come to town today, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but they've been in town for 6 hours, and they've arrested 6 of our most prolific people that were on warrants, and they're dealing with them right now in our cells. So these guys they're great because they come in, that's their job, they're plain clothes, they do static surveillance and pick these people off, and we have 6 people in jail right now. So that's and that's only because we communicate with them, and they come down and they'll stay overnight for a night or 2 and deal with that. So that's awesome for this community for sure. I'm going to stop there. If there's any questions, because I'm going to go into the statistics next, I would be happy to answer anything, or I can do the whole presentation and wait till the end. It's up to you.
We'll open it up to members of council if there's any questions on the first segment. Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through to Staff Sergeant. Welcome back home again. Just a question with respect to your first part of your presentation. My only question that I have here is with your 3 joint traffic check stops completed throughout this quarter in your priority number 1 report. Are those check stops in the town of Coaldale, or are they outside of the town of Coaldale?
That would be in the, I guess it'd be the Lethbridge County town of Coaldale area. So I'm not exactly sure where those were, but I know one for sure was. What they'll do is they'll usually start and do something in town, and they'll move out to, let's say, Stafford Lake, that access road, and do some impaired screening there. I know for a fact they did that one day. So it really depends on how, I won't say successful they are. If they spend a few hours at a place and then they'll just move on and keep it, because people talk on social media and stuff, so we like to change it up. But we don't just go to one spot, we go all around the communities.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I guess I was just more curious about the fact that the fines that are written would obviously say in or about Coaldale, I guess is how it would be worded, so that revenue would possibly come right to the town then.
Yeah, any ticket that any police officer or sheriff or CPO issues, if they write on their municipality of Coaldale, it goes to the Coaldale. If they write county of Lethbridge, then it goes to the county, and so on and so forth. So it's really up to the officer. And now we don't write it anymore. It's all electronic, and it's GPSed, so it's very accurate. So for sure you'll be getting anything that's written within the town of Coaldale.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions for the Staff Sergeant? Okay, we'll continue on then.
Thank you. So I know in later on in the presentation there's a large 2-page stat sheet, but really this one short one, and if you look on the right side, that kind of gives you the year-over-year change. It's a little more, I guess, telling than a 3-month period. I guess you can see what happened between April and June on the left, on the blue, between 2023 and 2024. But really, I think what really speaks is the year over year from 2022 to 2023. So we had some pretty good decreases just in the quarter, but if you go to the year over year, the big thing is the property crime, and we all know that that is an issue in this community and most communities that we're dealing with. And I can tell you that the 6 people that are in jail right now are all involved in property crime, and those are the same group of people that not only in this community, but they travel around and commit crimes and steal things. So doing the best we can to combat that, and we lay the charges when we can, and then it's up to the courts. So a 19% increase in between 2022 and 2023 in property crime. Then we go to drug offenses, which I think I spoke to last time here. We had the 120% increase really doesn't mean much because it went from 5 to 11, but in a town this size, that's a significant amount of charges for federal drug charges. That means possession or something more than simple possession. It's for the purpose of trafficking or those types of things. So that was a really successful quarter that we had last in January, February, March, and then going on into April. We did several search warrants and got some pretty good seizures and some charges there. Also, the increase in criminal code traffic, that goes hand in hand with the impaired driving and the check stops. We went from 12 to 28. Most of those would be either driving while prohibited, so no being prohibited from the court from previous impaired driving charges, or flight from police, which we have a fair amount of with the stolen vehicles that we try and stop and they take off from us. So that's a significant amount of charges for the town of Coaldale, 28 in 2023. So Even though the numbers are up, it does show because we are charging more people with those crimes. We are continuing to work with our partners at Lethbridge Police, Blood Tribe, Tabor Police, and our sheriffs and our crime reduction team to target these repeat offenders. And we can only do that so much and lay what we can for charges and leave the rest up to Crown and the courts. So I think I will just go right into these other stats. So just remember this big sheet, the two, it breaks it down into categories, a little more fine categories, but these are only from April to June 2020 to 2024. So this doesn't give you the full year picture. That's why I don't necessarily take too much heat in these. Gives us a bit of an idea if there's any increases, but going down through these stats, nothing really jumped out at me too much, other than on page 2, halfway down, under persons crimes, break and enter, we went from 7 to 11 in that quarter from 2023 to 2024, and break and enters can be anything, storage facilities, businesses, houses. We don't have a whole lot of breaking into houses. It's more into sheds or unoccupied places, people looking for crimes of opportunity to pawn stuff, steal stuff, that type of thing. Theft under and possession of stolen property. Those numbers kind of fluctuate. The year over year is what I like to look at more than these 3-month periods, but it does give you a bit of an idea. If there was anything related to statistics that I could answer that I could be more in depth on, please ask.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions for the staff sergeant? I don't see any. Do you have anything else to add, or is that your report?
That is my report.
Okay. One more opportunity. Well, thank you, Staff Sergeant. As always, we look forward to you coming and giving us an update, and pass on our appreciation to your members.
I will.
Thank you. Could I get someone to make a motion that we receive the R.C.M.P. delegation Staff Sergeant as information? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
I do have a question for Staff Sergeant.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just possibly an irrelevant question, but maybe relevant. With the new crossing on pedestrian crossing for the new school, I'd be interested to hear from yourselves and maybe even possibly the CP or the CPKC police as to how things are going. Maybe a future conversation that either you or they could offer with council to address how that's all working, the new fence, some of the other things that are involving along the tracks, along the side of Highway 3.
Yeah, thanks. That does remind me that there was some concerns with kids, I guess, crossing the road and the tracks in different places, going through people's property. I think that fence is going to alleviate that. I'm not sure if it's done. It's my first day back in a couple of weeks, but I think it's mostly done. As far as the crossing itself, I'm not sure how much is getting used, but I will certainly do some, I'll see if there's any files that are related to that, and I'll bring it back to council for my next report.
Thank you. So thanks again, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you.
Moving on. Let's move on to, we have a public hearing coming up at 5:45, but we'll jump down the agenda to agenda item 7.1, the snow removal policy MS0D-003. And we have our Director of Operational Services, Terry May, giving us an update. Terry, whenever you get settled in, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Terry May, the Director of Operational Services for the town of Coaldale. And today we bring forward the snow removal policy MSOD 003 for the town. The reason we need to bring it forward this year, obviously we had a lot of growth on our north side, and to add those additional roadways into our snow clearing policy for the Prairie Winds Secondary School and for the Community Rec Center. I have also added in the 12th Avenue extension in the Industrial Park. I know it's not quite complete yet, but since we're bringing this together and we know it's going to be completed soon, for the joining of the Industrial Park to Highway 845. So those were the two main roads, is 16th or 26th Street and 16th Avenue to the school, into the rec center. And then 12th Avenue, the extension there. There were some other additions that we've made throughout the course of this year, where we've changed some stop signs, yield signs to stop signs, added some stop signs. So the the sanding map needed to be updated as well. And the last time this was brought to council, I don't think the pathway map was in there, so we've added that back, the sidewalk pathway map. So with those changes, I bring this back to council to for approval on adding these items back into the snow removal policy. And then I'm happy to take any questions on the items that were in there.
Thank you, Terry. I'll open it up to members of council. Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, through to Terry. I have two questions for you. Because we're adding these extra kilometers, do you have any idea what it will cost council to maintain this now that we're moving into the other, more cleaning?
So yes, based on a good average is we add about $3,000 per kilometer that we add of roadway that we're going to do snow removal on. This, however, because it's all open sides, trenches, ditches on the sides, so we can push snow. This is all going to come from the snowplow for both these sections of road. So in as far as a direct cost here, it would just be a little bit of time for the operator to redirect to there first before finishing up the other priority routes in town. So this ad currently won't add a cost to the snow removal, but if we develop properties fronting onto these roads, then we have to remove, then there'll be a cost to that, but that will be in the future.
Okay, and the other question I have is on 11th Street, we talked about cleaning from where the school is at Jenny, because it's secondary, it's a second priority cleaning. You have even for the school routes right in the yellow. Talked about that because the parents all use that to turn around that extra half a block. Did that just get overlooked, or did
it didn't get overlooked? That currently is drainage, that section of road, and the challenge with adding anything up front, anything more up front, is that getting through the actual process of snow removal for that first day will put us in conflict with some of the other school openings, and we'll be passing through that. So we looked at, as another example, Civic Square and Main Street, and when we tackle that, it would be great to go north and south of Main Street as we're there and have those open up as well. But the moment we add more to what we're hitting before that, then then our whole ability to get to the schools ahead of them and get out of the way before they open up is a little bit of a challenge. So if we add extra roadway prior to all the way up to St. Joe's, we're not going to be able to get past them before the school rush is there.
okay? Because just looking at your map here, I'm just bringing this up because from it's 22nd Avenue across, you have one section in there. There's no cleaning. and all the buses use that street right from the get-go in the morning. So I'm just wondering why that piece too was not on a priority, like a secondary priority.
22nd Avenue,
Yes,
right in front of the school.
from Baker all the way across.
Yes. So when we look at school routes as a secondary priority, we are looking at hitting at least the front of the building. We're not looking at going around the whole building to do all of that as a school route. We're just looking at having access to the front of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Any further questions for our presenter? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council approve the additions to snow removal on 16th Avenue, 26th Street, and 12th Avenue as set out in the updated snow removal policy MSOD 003? Councillor Abrey makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 7.2, the Assessment Review Board Bylaw 901-AP-10-24. And we have our Chief Financial Officer and Deputy CAO, Kyle Beauchamp, presenting. Kyle, whenever you're ready.
Thanks and good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you today, we have the Assessment Review Board Bylaw 901-AP-10-24. So this was first presented to Council at the September 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. Essentially, before the Town of Coaldale used the Regional Services of Old Man River Commission. After this year, the town is no longer able to use those services. So what we have to do is put in our own Assessment Review Board bylaw and have the Town of Coaldale create that and operate that on our own. So this is all subject to Part 11 of the MGA, which outlines the legislation of what is required for an Assessment Review Board that each municipality may have. And we have basically created a brand new bylaw for this because our previous bylaw was part of a regional commission, and this is separate for the Town of Coaldale operating it. So you see on the bylaw, on page 1 of the bylaw, we do start by going through the different review boards that are required. So we do have the 3 to 1 person boards for the Local Assessment Review Board bylaw, which is your residential essentially, and your composite, which is your commercial and industrial essentially. There are particular requirements in the MGA legislation that dictates when a 3-person and a 1-person board bylaw can be used. So for example, a 1-person board bylaw may be used if it's in a administrative error or basically low-hanging fruit. Anything that comes to actual assessment and whatnot, the MGA does legislate that the 3-person board bylaw does have to be used. So this isn't a section where essentially the people on the board can pick when it's used to a 3-person versus a 1-person. There are very specific requirements in the MGA which do dictate that. Further going into the bylaw, we are requesting that each member be on the board for 3 years and that they would be appointed by council at the regular organizational meeting. So we are currently advertising for this position in the normal procedure that we do for the other public member bylaws. So this does outline the requirements of each membership as well as the clerk of the court. So we had recommended that council appoint the corporate services manager of the Town of Coaldale to act as the clerk, and they can delegate accordingly. Finally, any fees, the fees are outlined, excuse me, in the town's rates and fees bylaw. If an applicant is successful in their appeal, the full fees are returned. And somewhat consistent with current practice from town policy, A member on this board will receive no compensation for participation in the board. They will be eligible, though, to receive reimbursement for travel and expenses incurred, as there will be some travel and training required for members on this board. With that being said, we have a couple options for council tonight. Either can approve first reading. Administration will be happy to take any further questions back from council, or if you would like to proceed with all 3 readings tonight. I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Abrey.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a clerical error for myself, 2.2 and 3.1 are exactly the same. Is there any reason to have 2.2 in there?
No, that's a good catch. We can take 2.2 out.
Thank you. Any further questions for our presenter, Deputy Mayor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor, and through to Kyle, just as a follow-up to Councillor Abrey's question, the term of 3 years, how does that work in terms of councillors who are on council for 4 years?
Yeah, we use 3 years because there is training required for this. So the training does last for 3 years. So there isn't, say, a limit to the number of people that have to be on the board. So, for example, we have 1 more year left in this council term, and then we have the election coming up. So it would be recommendation that council would fill the board from the public members and the council appointed representatives as such. So once the next year comes up, if a member no longer wishes to participate in the board as a public member, they are able to resign from the board. And there has to be, council does have the ability to appoint members. So next year, if there's any different council members who wish to go on the board, council can then appoint them at that time. So there is flexibility to, add and change members. I can say that we've probably all been aware of boards where terms were supposed to last 3 years and they don't, right? So there is some flexibility on that.
Thank you. Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kyle. Not really too pressing of a question, but on 3.2, it says Council shall at its first organizational meeting appoint by resolution members of the assessment review boards and the chair of the assessment review boards. I think all boards that I sit on and that we all sit on, we appoint the chair within. Is it necessary to have council appoint that chair, or can we leave that up to the board itself?
The appointment by council for the chair, that might be an item that I would have to bring back further information on. It's somewhat standard from what I've seen to have council appoint the chair in comparable bylaws I reviewed. That doesn't mean, though, that you can't do what you're suggesting. So this may be a good opportunity to, in this instance, if council wanted to proceed with first reading, could come back with more information on that before council does do 3rd reading, if that is a point that I have to bring back more if you wanted to do that. Because the MGA does somewhat specify what you can and can't do. I just don't want to make a recommendation that contradicts the MGA.
No, 100%. And I mean, if it's easiest to have us just appoint the chair, that's totally fine. I just, like I said, in any of the boards I sit on, we always appoint the chair within. I just didn't know if it specifically had to be done this way for this board.
Yeah, this one just has a little more teeth in some of the MGA requirements, just dealing with the assessment. So I can, let me research that and report back.
Okay, thank you.
With that being said, that's just a point of information that won't have any bearing on giving all 3 readings this evening. Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? So the options that we have, as our presenter explained, we can pass first reading or we can do all 3. So let's start off with, can I get someone to sponsor a motion that to provide first reading of Assessment Review Board Bylaw 901-AP-10-24 as presented? Councillor Beekman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And for second reading, do we have a sponsor? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Mayor, just before we call for second reading, I think the question that Councillor Beekman asks is something that that should be addressed before we go into second and third reading, mainly because we need to understand how that chair position works. Simply, if the chair is not able to attend that meeting and for the meeting to proceed, that'll have to be resolved one way or the other. Kyle?
Yeah, just a comment, just reading the bylaw, it does say council shall, so it doesn't say council must. So I would leave that as open-ended, that council can have the ability to appoint the chair. If council decides not to, then it can be done within the board. So it's a shall, not a must.
So what you're saying is with what you just said, we can continue on with second and third reading.
Yeah, I don't believe that point would deter or to Councillor Beekman's question, make that an absolute where the board couldn't appoint the chair if they desire to, but council does have the opportunity if they so wish to.
Thank you. Understood. So with that being said, are you still willing to sponsor second reading? There's a motion on the floor by Deputy Mayor Chapman to provide second reading for the Assessment Review Board. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then I need a sponsor for unanimous consent to hold all three readings in one meeting for the Assessment Review Board Bylaw. Anybody care to sponsor that one? Deputy Mayor Chapman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And final, that needs someone to sponsor that council provide third and final reading of Assessment Review Board Bylaw 901-AP-10-24 as presented. Anybody care? Councillor Saylor makes that motion. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Jumping ahead to agenda item 8.1 under new business, appointment of returning officer for the 2025 municipal election. And we have our CAO, Kaylin Hastings, presenting. Kaylin, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's hard to believe we're talking election again. It's been a very good, fast 3 years. And so we do have to plan for next year with an election being in October 2025 with the nomination period opening in January. So our recommendation here is to use the same process as we did last year, led by our municipal clerk, Lana Antony, and her team. They did an excellent job last year. And so what we're asking for is council to make a resolution to appoint Lana Antony as the returning officer for the 2025 municipal election. The one procedural difference this election is that we won't be using the tabulators. That is a provincial legislative change. We will be going back to the I don't know if it's the old-fashioned days, but the earlier days where we do manual ballot counting. So that is going to result in likely some additional laborers required in order to count the volume in as efficient manner as possible. So that being said, I recommend that we appoint Lana Antony municipal clerk as we did last election.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for our presenter? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain making a motion that council appoint Lana Antony, municipal clerk, as the returning officer for the 2025 municipal election for the town of Coledale? Anybody care to make that motion? Councillor Abrey makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations, Lana.
Question, Mayor. Mayor, just will there be a budget forthcoming with regards to that election then? Okay.
That would be a question for our presenter.
Sorry, Councillor Chapman, I was just taking some notes there. What was your question?
There'll be a forthcoming budget for the election.
That's correct. Like it'll be a budget line item. We're still coming up with a total budget to account for the additional staff that might be needed for the counting.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to, again, jumping ahead to information items under agenda item 12.1 to 12.7. Are there any questions from any member of council regarding any of those information items? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive items 12.1 to 12.7 as information? Deputy Mayor Chapman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going to jump up. We got a few more minutes before our public hearing. Agenda item 10.1, verbal update on the County of Lethbridge Community Learning Council. And on the deck today is Councillor Jordan Saylor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was just going to give a little update on what the CLCLC is and kind of what we do and that type of thing here. So the County of Lethbridge Community Learning Council seeks to enhance the quality of life in communities by increasing the ability of adults to engage in learning. The goal is to enrich the quality of life, promote lifelong learning, increase awareness in the community, and assist individuals in developing foundational skills through the community learning programs. The goals of the program are to improve the accessibility of learning opportunities, address education, training, and learning gaps in the Lethbridge County, to provide opportunities for adults to acquire important foundational skills such as literacy and English as a second language, to help mobilize community volunteers and other resources in support of adult learning, and to contribute to solving individual and community problems through learning initiatives in coordination and cooperation with related organizations. So we serve newcomers to the community and a lot of like the low German population. We serve Barons, Coaldale, Colehurst, Diamond City, Iron Springs, Marnark, Shaughnessy, Pitcher Butte, Nobleford, and Turin. Some of the classes that are coming up and that they offer are things such as first aid. They also have English learning language, so that's for helping to improve your reading, writing, speaking, listening, English, all your kind of English skills. There's also free childcare available with all their classes so that they can bring their children to learn as well. Also just wanted to give a shout out to Melanie and Roxanne of the Community Learning Council. They won So in celebration of International Literacy Day, Canada's Premier announced the recipients of the 20th Annual Council of Federation Literacy Award, marking a significant milestone in the recognition of literacy champions. This award, presented across each province and territory, honors extraordinary achievements, groundbreaking practices, and outstanding achievements and excellence in literacy. So our very own Roxanne and Melanie were both awarded that award this year. So congratulations to them. And thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saylor. Any questions, comments for Jordan? Well, please pass on our congratulations to your team members. With that being said, could I get someone to make a motion to accept Councillor Saylor's report as information? Councillor Pickering, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. According to my clock, it's 5:45 p.m. And I'm going to be calling the public hearing to order at 5:45. The intent of this public hearing is regarding agenda item 5.1, Land Use Bylaw Amendment 896-P-09-24 regarding rezoning residential R1A to small lot residential R1C. At this time, I would ask our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO, Cameron Mills, to introduce the subject matter of this public hearing. Cam, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mayor Van Rijn, Council. Pleased to speak to you today about this issue. So the report for this particular item is largely found in agenda item 7.3 with respect to this particular bylaw, the bylaw being 896-P-0924. And this is for rezoning of a property in Coaldale from R1A, which is a residential zoning, to R1C, which is the residential small lot zoning. And we did receive this application from a landowner who's here with us this evening. And the intention of this rezoning is to allow for the potential to subdivide this property into two lots. And the applicant has provided a descriptive narrative of that proposal, which is included in the report. From administration's perspective, the proposed redesignation does generally align with the residential growth objectives of the town plan. So, for example, in Section 2.1, Vision and Guiding Principles, an appreciation of the affordability of housing in Coaldale and interest in more variety of housing types to accommodate different housing needs. Residential development policies with respect to infill development, striving for a target of 10% of new development to be built in existing areas. Also, generally encouraging increasing the density of existing neighborhoods found in the infill development policy, and for achieving a variety and diversity of housing types within existing neighborhoods. The proposed redesignation is required to allow for such subdivision, as the newly created lot would be smaller than the minimal allowable size in the R1A zoning. With that in mind, and Lana, if you wouldn't mind scrolling just a little bit and showing the map that was included for the property shown on the screen, we should just have that up on screen if that's possible. Thank you. So as you can see here, the property in question is 30.17 meters wide, which is approximately 100 feet wide. And so for perspective, the R1A zoning does accommodate 50-foot wide lots. So the lots in Cottonwood, for example, which represent relatively large residential single-family lots, are 50 feet wide. This particular lot is double that width. When you look at the broader block within the area, it's clear that there were larger 100-foot lots that were in place that were at one point subdivided in order to have two lots of approximately 50 feet in width. This particular lot would be able to be subdivided if it weren't for the positioning of the existing house. And so if there were no house, for example, if the house were demolished on this lot, there would be no need to rezone. A simple subdivision application could be taken directly to the MPC, and the reasonable expectation from that would be subdivision into two 50-foot wide lots. The reason we have a rezoning hearing before council today is simply because of the positioning of that house means that the subdivision of that lot requires the creation of one very large lot, which would be approximately 68 feet in width, and the remaining lot being, 62 feet in width, and the remaining lot being 38 feet in width. And so the R1C zoning is applied to accommodate that 38-foot width. The combination of the two lots would still be 100 feet, and so these two lots would still represent, between the two of them, the same width as any other two lots within the block. So from administration's perspective, while one lot is in fact a little bit smaller, nothing about this is creating sort of a larger density than would be found in any of the other lots, because two 50-foot lots creates the same amount of housing, the same amount of parking needs, the same amount of on-street and off-street parking in particular that is required here. So the narrowness of the 38-foot lot is made up for by the width of the 62-foot lot that remains. And again, administration's perspective is that this type of subdivision does align with the neighboring lots to the north, east, and west within the block, which is shown in the photograph taken from the town's GIS system, which was attached to the report. As required in the Municipal Government Act, we did circulate this to houses not within 60 meters, but rather to the entire block, just to make sure that we got good representation, as well as properties across the street and behind. We did receive in time for the circulation of the agenda one comment by email from a neighbor, which is Barb Ennis at 2210 23rd Avenue. And that is included in the report, and then also provided to council, which was passed out before the meeting began. We had another letter that came in a little after the report was written, and so we provided that to council, and we asked that council consider that letter also in their deliberation. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions in advance of the landowner presenting.
Thank you. So regarding the letter that came in just before the meeting, you've had a chance to digest it from an administration's point of view. Could you speak to those concerns and administration's rebuttal?
Thank you. Yes, and in fact, had the opportunity to speak to the writer prior to writing the letter. Certainly had a number of conversations. I can certainly understand the concern with respect to parking. However, again, from a technical position, my position here is simply that we have lots within the street that are 50 feet wide by approximately, I believe, 175 feet long. So we've got very, very large lots. We also have a lane in the back, which is relatively underutilized. If there is indeed a parking problem on 23rd Avenue, it's not really for me to say whether or not there is. My visits to 23rd Avenue, if it has not been full, but I'm not there all the time, there is sufficient room for every lot within 23rd Avenue to have multiple front parking units that are off-street, as well as the development of garages of approximately 900 square feet, and the rear meeting the 10% requirement, which are largely underutilized. So from my perspective, there is lots and lots of opportunity for individual landowners to create additional parking within their lots if they feel that parking within their existing space is a challenge. And it is hard for me to conceptualize a way in which a 38-foot lot and a 62-foot lot creates more parking challenges than two 50-foot lots do. So from my perspective, from a purely technical perspective, my opinion is that the subdivision is warranted and reasonable from that perspective.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments for our presenter? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and through to Cam. When I first studied this for first reading, I eventually voted against it, mainly because I didn't feel that I had enough information to understand the logistics of this application. And to some degree I don't, but I understand the technicality that you're working with, that academically it does fit. When you consider some of the lots beside it to the east and particularly to the west, or is it to the east, I should say. But at the same time, I'm just trying to understand what really the purpose is. If you're going to build a single dwelling on that 38-foot lot for like a one residence, or is it going to be a duplex type of a thing, or what are we asking for here?
So realistically, thank you for the question. So realistically speaking, the R1C zoning from a residential zoning perspective is fairly limited amounts of uses. You'd probably have a certain amount of difficulty building a duplex type space. It'd be much easier to build a duplex on a larger lot. So while any use within the R1C zoning would be allowable, most likely what you would see is a single family dwelling. 38 feet for a lot width is it's narrower. Again, it's narrower than 50 feet, but the reality of new housing construction is that 38 feet is a relatively large urban lot for a single family dwelling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments for our presenter? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Through to Cameron. So looking at the map here, my only question is the properties on either side of this lot, to the east and to the west, are quite narrow. So were these subdivided in the past, or was this something that was done recently?
Thank you. I'm not actually sure exactly when they were subdivided. So what I'm simply seeing here is that if you look at this block, so the southern row of houses, so the houses to the north of 23rd Avenue, these lots are longer than the lots to the north of them on the other side of the alley. So these were always relatively large lots. There are a number of lots on the street that are still 100 feet in width. So you see what I've provided in this map is just to show the combined total of two properties as we go forward, and they all vary from 30 to 32 meters. So the property in question is 30.17 meters, which represents about 100 feet. And so the property directly to the east, for example, was clearly subdivided at some point from a larger lot. You can see the jog in the property, and what that has done, it has created the lot 2 to the east has a narrower frontage, but then the sort of general width of the property widens out to the rear. I'm not sure why it was done that way. I think it sort of doesn't necessarily matter as it applies to this particular discussion. It's a strange choice. So I generally prefer to see a rectangular lot. It just makes everyone's lives easier. But yeah, it's clear to me that there was some consideration at some point to create these narrow. And when I say narrower, I'm still talking about 50 feet lots, which are very large.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments for our presenter? We have the applicant in the gallery. Do you have anything to add? And just turn your microphone on and introduce yourself and give your address, please.
My name is Tony Truba, and just to answer Sister Ray's question, the lot beside me that had the jogged fencing was owned by the people. That 100-foot lot was owned, and the older home, the newer home, the owner subdivided that to build the house that beside it, the newer house, and he was then able to make allowances for the fence to be modified.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Beekman.
Thank you. And I just one question to you. Is there intent or plan for off-street parking?
There is off-street parking there. Yes, there's no need for additional parking. There's adequate parking space in front of that property. I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry. On the rezoned piece of property, when that gets developed into R1C, into a residential property, is there an intent or a plan to provide off-street parking onto that property? Like a driveway or something?
There is adequate room for a driveway. It's not my intent at this point, but there is room for a driveway for a 30-foot single dwelling home.
If I may just add to that. So right now, obviously there's a rezoning stage, a subdivision stage, and then a development permit stage. So at the development permit stage, in the event rezoning does happen and subdivision occurs, there are requirements for a minimum amount of off-street parking. So for example, if they had built a single family dwelling, there's always a requirement for 2 off-street parking stalls. So there would be, but I mean, realistically, there would be room for theoretically, there would be room for a 2-car driveway plus a 2-car garage to the front, which would be 4 stalls. And there would also be sufficient room for a garage in the rear of about 600 square feet, which is a 20 by 30 garage. So there is the potential easily within this lot to develop as many as theoretically 8 parking stalls off street, though I highly doubt they would actually develop 8, but there is room for sure. And there would be a requirement for a minimum of 2. Yeah.
Councillor Pickering, did you have a question as well? Okay. Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through to Cam, if I may then. So the purpose here tonight is to do the rezoning, but for the intent of the application and the permit, could there be a requirement that there be off-street parking?
Thank you for the question. So rezoning bylaws are really just a question of yes or no. But that being said, within the R1C zoning, there is already a requirement for off-street parking. So there would be a requirement of, well, it depends on what's being developed there. But so if there was a house that people were living in, that requires, a dwelling unit requires 2 parking spots. If they ran a home occupation that was approved there by the Municipal Planning Commission, there'd be a requirement for 2 additional. So it depends on the use, but there's a minimum of 2 for sure, either way.
Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for the off-street parking, if that happens, which you said it will likely happen, or at least 2 spots, will there still be space for backyard in this property?
Yeah, if I may. So a standard, when you think of sort of a standard newer residential lot, so for example, the lots going in around the high school are going to be about 110 feet deep. Lots in Lethbridge are often more like 100 feet deep. This lot is, I believe, 175 feet deep, 200 feet deep. So it's very, very large. So even with a very large garage, you would still have what amounts to a massive backyard. Yeah.
I'll open it up to members of council one more time. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will now ask council if they have sufficient information to make a decision on land use bylaw amendment 896-P-09-24. Thank you. I will declare the public hearing closed at 6:02 p.m. Thank you very much. We've been all over this agenda. I just got to find my place here again now.
Apologize. I tried to guess how long R.C.M.P.
Yes. So if I can get you to come back up again. And agenda item 7.3. And that's regarding land use bylaw amendment 896-P-09-24, for which we just had the public hearing. I just wanted to ask members of council if there's any other questions or comments for our presenter. Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain that motion that council provides second reading of land use bylaw amendment 896-P-09-24. Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And would anybody care to entertain third and final reading of land use bylaw amendment 896-P-09-24? Councillor Pickering makes that one as well. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you.
Terry, it looks like you're going to be up again. So moving on to departmental reports, agenda item 9.1, the operations update for Q1 and Q2. And again, we have our Director of Operational Services, Terry May, presenting. Terry, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As stated, I'm here to deliver the Q1, Q2 update for operations. It's been a little while, so you're going to see some snow right off the start, unfortunately. So just to recap for Q1, multiple snow events at the start of the year. It went fairly smoothly. We had a lot of long days. Just some information for you on January 18th and 19th, we removed 650 loads of snow. February 5th, we had 260 loads of snow, and we cleaned 94 kilometers of roads, although it was the same set of roads 5 times, so it's okay. We had, on day 1 of these events, we have 20 pieces of equipment out there to get this moving. So town staff starts at 3, 4, and our contractor starts at 4, and we plow through the town as fast as we can. The other big project in the winter was the columbarium, which was approved last year and installed on February 11th. It required quite a bit of concrete. It was a fairly heavy unit and required quite structure to support it. But that was done with town staff and contracted services. Q2, lots of rain in Q2. So in the beginning and middle of Q1, we were all worried about drought and not having enough rain, and then all of a sudden we had lots of rain. So just some pictures. My favorite one is the bottom one there. Our downtown core all drains to R.I. Baker's drain there. But that was after about 45 minutes of rain that came down fairly hard. So almost a little wave there. This was put back some of our other projects like street sweeping and grading because it was on again, off again every few weeks. It almost seemed like so. So on to grading and street sweeping. This is yearly projects for the town that we do every year. We have 33 kilometers of laneway, and then we have 57 kilometers of asphalt that we sweep at least once a year. Usually twice in the fall. We will hit up wherever the leaves are falling the most, but at least everywhere gets done at least once for 57 kilometers there. As I say again, we were about a month behind. All said and done, we didn't get finished until end of June or mid-July this year. So, and normally we're a little bit ahead of that schedule. Another big event, the Big Truck Petting Zoo. This one was really exciting. It had a great turnout. I am just going to list off the attendees if that's okay with council. I didn't have space on the presentation to show them, but obviously we had a barbecue for free food from Dennis Dirt Works. The Canadian military was there, the R.C.M.P, the town fire department, EMS, Palliser Schools, Handy Bus, Fortis, ATCO, Groundbreakers, GFL, town staff, and then we had an extrication demonstration at the end of the event. The event was about 3 hours. And we figured that we were about 1,500 attendants, which was up from about 1,000 the year before. Taking that with a little bit of grain of salt, we were measuring food and how much was ate. So that's how we were kind of judging how many people showed up. Another little topic just to add here for safety. Our safety advisor reports to me, and I wanted to add in some of the training that we do for our staff. A lot of this training and the course numbers are fairly high, but it's for the whole organization. A lot of them are smaller courses online. We do 10, 15, 20-minute courses. There's some outside training as well, but just to show our dedication and the town's dedication to, a safe workplace for for our employees here. Another couple of points there, we added 2 AEDs to one Civic Square and the Recreation Center as they were kind of new buildings online. So this was probably the first sidewalk we had done this year. So sidewalk replacement, we have over 70 kilometers of sidewalk, and we're looking to replace 300 meters this year. I haven't tabulated it all up yet. We still have some good weather, so maybe we'll get a little more done. But that was our goal to start the year. We would certainly like to make this a little more of a focus for us, as 300 meters a year is probably a little bit shy on how much we should be replacing each year. This also, if you're looking at the pictures there, the crew is out there. That's probably the first time with all the seasonals as well. That's why it looks like there's lots of staff there, but they're getting their learning experience from that first sidewalk. So then we have the Cottonwood traffic calming. That was in combination with our infrastructure department. They arranged for the concrete slabs to come. So we put that up on May 30th. I've driven through it a few times. It seems to have helped a little bit with speed. So, and it obviously this is in the middle of the project, so the bullards weren't up yet in the signs, but. Water and sewer maintenance. So for the first 6 months, we completed 370 locates, 314 hydrants that we would exercise and start flushing. We installed 36 water meters and 68 MXUs, which are the wireless readers for the water meters. This was the water line tie-in for the county's Eastern Industrial Transmission Pipeline project. This was a hot tap that was done on, I'm forgetting the day now, but it was done earlier this year, and they were actually tapping in size on size. So although the day went smooth, that valve was attached. It was a very nervous day and a lot of preparation for what could go wrong, or that we were doing on our end with infrastructure and development as well. So I just added the extended producer responsibility for from ARMA. My predecessor and my utilities supervisor Darren Lawrence have been working on this for probably a year and a half now, and then when I started this position, just trying to catch up on what this would all entail and learning about the program as it's starting to gather up steam to be rolling out next year. The equipment purchases for this year was one pickup truck and a zero-turn mower. Both items were purchased under budget, and both were started the season as it started. I think we got the zero turn in May, so right at the start of the season to cut grass. So, and the last item I have on here is the hydrovac. We had purchased this. Operations department purchased in 2023, but it was a very big ask, and we take that very seriously. So I wanted to bring it back and just update council that we are using this for multiple departments right now, because it's a single axle. We have more drivers capable of using it. So currently we've done it for parks. Utilities obviously uses it most, but Public Works has done a lot of sign installations. And we're doing some inspection for infrastructure if they need to find certain services that are underground as well. The town's put about 400 hours on this unit so far, and I just wanted to bring it back. Like I said, I know this was a very big purchase, so I just wanted to update everybody that it's being well used. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Terry. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, through to Terry. Great presentation. My question for you is: there's a hydrant across the street from Shell by the by the funeral home there, and it was out of order for like a good 2 weeks. I'm just wondering if it's back up and running, and what caused it to be out of service for so long. Just out of curiosity.
I can't answer that question right now, but I can let you know as soon as I find out.
Thanks.
Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Terry, for your presentation. And also thank you for the hours update on the vac truck. I was actually really curious about that. Minor question here. I noticed on page 8 when you're doing sidewalk replacements, that was your crew doing the sidewalk? You didn't hire that one out?
No, that was our crew.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Terry, again. Yes, as well, my accolades on the hydrovac. I know that was a very popular piece of equipment at the petting zoo this year, and big grins across Darren Lawrence's face when ever a child decided to crawl up into the cab. My question to you is with regards to sidewalks again, and obviously everything's around budget and prices. So with your staff being able to manage the 300 meters of sidewalk replacement, do you have capacity to do that? Is that something that you have budget for? Is it, are we saving money by having our own staff do that, or is it something that still you have an eye on keeping it contracted out?
We split that like we do with a lot of jobs. We do some in-house and we contract some out. Those are usually the bigger ones are good to have the contractor do 3 or 4 at a time, and then we'll do the smaller ones. This was the first one this season, and it was good to get the seasonals into it. So it was fairly easy pour. I shouldn't say easy. I'm not the one doing it, but it was a fairly straightforward pour, so it was a good experience for them to get started in the season. We would like to stick to doing more of the lowered accessibility ramps, the unusual ones, and give out or not give out, but have it contracted out to do the bigger portions. When I said that we would like to do 300 meters, so we probably have about 78 kilometers of sidewalk, or 78,000. And 300 is about a 250-year replacement. So we'd like to bring that a little closer to, 100 years would be good. As far as capacity, there would be asks for that type of thing. The project that council did last year, or 2022, with the roads and the additional sidewalks, got us that number, but we don't do that every year. So.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So Terry, how long have you been in a role as operations manager?
4 months, 5 months.
Well, you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
And pass on our accommodations to your crews as well. Seeing no more questions, comments, could I get someone to make a motion that we receive the operations update for Q1 and Q2 as information? Councillor Reese, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thanks, Terry. Moving on to agenda item 9.2, financial update, Q2 up to June 30th, 2024. And again, we have our Chief Financial Officer, Kyle Beauchamp, presenting. Kyle, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks again and good evening, Council. So we'll just start directly into this. So page 71 of the staff report. So you should see kind of the income statement for the town of Coaldale. So going left to right on this. So left, the blue items, that's your budget numbers for the year. And then, sorry, that's your actual numbers for the year. The middle of that to the right is the budget for the year, and then the budget remaining, followed by some commentary. So we'll go through this briefly and take any questions from council. So first of all, property tax revenue, everything looks on track there, no concerns. Utilities, fees, and service, we are expecting approximately a $90,000 net deficit. That's largely due to lower water consumption throughout the town, as well as some water leaks within the town. User fees, sales of goods and services, that's like our rentals, user fee groups, services from our fire agreement. That's largely expected to be on budget. The one item of note there is that our atrium rentals have been low on that compared to what we have budgeted. In talking with our team on that one, that's something for 2025. And the end of this year, we'll be working on a marketing plan to help boost those numbers up. Franchise fees, $50,000 surplus expected from higher consumption. Operating grants, $550,000 surplus expected from the 2023 R.C.M.P funding that was not expected. Land development, the $60,000 there is a gain on disposal of a residential property, so money that we made over and above what we paid for it. Fines and penalties, we are expecting approximately $150,000 deficit in our fine revenue related to photo radar. That's largely due to downtime of the machine and lower capacity for the year. Investment income, we are expecting a $100,000 deficit. What we did for this is we had some bonds that we had purchased during COVID when interest rates were lower, and with the market going up, they were underperforming. So going into budget for next year, we decided to get out of those bonds earlier, take the loss this year, but we were able to turn that cash into lock in some higher rates for the future that will net the town some funds for the next couple of years over and above if we had done nothing. License, permits, and fees, $50,000 surplus expected, largely due to subdivision and safety codes, revenue higher than estimated. And on the expense side, you'll see that the budget percentages remaining here are largely within that 45 to 60%-ish, so there's not too many large concerns there. Breaking it down in the categories a little further, we did have some vacancies throughout the year, so we are expecting $150,000 deficit, and just slightly a little bit over on our interest expense, just due to some timing of some transactions there. Overall, on the operating budget, we're kind of looking, aside from that R.C.M.P. $550,000 funding, we're going to be pretty close to break even. So that's fairly good there. On the capital side, moving to the next page here, so we do have all the projects that were budgeted for the year, the actual cost and the budget remaining. So the recreation center and the F&E, those ones we're expecting to finalize those before the end of the year as the projects begin closing out. Civic Square Outdoor Phase 3, the costs are expected to be on budget, but we're going to probably be about $300,000 short on our revenue target.
Kyle, if I could just ask our municipal clerk to advance the slide for us and catch up there, please.
Yeah, next slide. Perfect. So the revenue that we're short on there, something that obviously we are aware of and that we are looking at additional funding measures as part of our budget deliberations going into next year. Pool renovations, that project was completed. We were over budget about $29,000. There was additional work requested to be done there, so that did come at that cost. Cemetery columbarium completed, as Terry had previously described. And a couple projects for the seniors center and the library, the lighting upgrades. Those were kind of grant dependent projects from budget that we have applied for and are kind of waiting to hear back on the grant. So those will be pushed to 2025 more likely. Water reservoir, rail spur, Malloy Phase 2B, the sanitary trunk line Phase 1. Those are all projects in the initial stages of construction. Highway 3, Land O'Lakes Crossing, a $100,000 budget expected there with, $100,000 surplus expected with costs coming in slightly lower. The Northeast Industrial paving was completed at a cost of $160,000. Dustin Yankee previously had brought this to council's attention in one of his infrastructure updates that some of the costs of the paving had become higher than what we anticipated a year ago. So we did have a slightly higher cost there in the industrial park. Finally, a couple items here. The Cottonwood Fountain Ponds replacement, that's going to be pushed to 2025 as well. That cost is expected to be lower, though, than the $60,000. And then the park zero-turn mower and the park's GPS line painter and the fleet truck were all completed in the year, with the zero-turn mower and the fleet truck being under budget as well. Turn it back to council for any questions on this report.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions for our CFO? I don't see any. Thank you, Kyle. And with that being said, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the financial update for Q2 as information? Councillor Abrey makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks again, Kyle. Moving on to agenda item 10.2, we have Councillor Beekman speaking in regards to the Coaldale Library Board bylaws.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, the bylaw updates are just they're just keeping in line with the updates on the Chinook Arch, or for changes made with Chinook Arch. One of the big ones was that we changed the amount of fines that a card holder, but Chinook Arch raised theirs to $25.01, and we raised ours to align with that. And the reason for that, it doesn't pertain necessarily to Coaldale, but a lot of the smaller libraries, they charge $25 for a membership. And if people ever signed up online, the second that they would put the e-card in their in their shopping cart, it would block them from being able to make any purchases. So they had to then go down to the library, manually pay for that online membership. So this now at the $25.01 does allow the smaller libraries to do that. Again, we weren't running into this problem, but this now aligns Coaldale with the remainder of Chinook Arch. And then there was just some wordage when it comes to the borrowing of videos. We've added DVDs, Blu-rays, and video games, as those are all separate items that are all very popular and hot button items. So that's it. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Question for you. With the outdoor skating rink opening this fall, is the library still planning on renting skates? Yes, I don't have a complete up to date on how many pairs of skates we have, but we just discussed at the last board meeting that we will be ready to go for that. The town is also, or the library has also purchased a skate sharpener, so they'll be able to keep the maintenance up on their skates as well as they want to offer for a small fee sharpening services to other members of the community. Okay, thank you. And for those skates, sorry, I should mention too that the plan for renting on those skates is going to be a week-to-week rental, but they're free to be taken anywhere outside of Coaldale as well too. Okay, appreciate that. And I just got to clarify what I just said. If the construction timelines allow, the skating rink is going to be open this fall. Any other questions, comments for our presenter? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that Council approve the library board bylaws as presented? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I believe that concludes the open portion of the meeting. So we will be going into closed session at 6:29 p.m. in accordance with Section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1, 13.3, 13.4, 13.5, subject to Section 16, business interests of a third party. Item 13.2, subject to Section 21, intergovernment relations, and Section 24, advice from officials. Items 13.3, 13.4, and 13.5, subject to economic and other interests of a public body. Could I get someone to make that motion? Councillor Reese? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We shall take a 10-minute break.